Okay, Supreme Infinite Light with Universe Light Power at Unitarian Universalist in Morgantown, West Virginia. And we're going to talk about the 7 Hermetic Principles, the 7 Principles of Alchemy. So from the 7 Principles of Alchemy, the godfather of that is Hermes Trismegistus. And where you can find this information is in the book, the Kybalion. The 7 Hermetic Principles was popularized in 1908. The Kybalion formed the philosophical foundation of Hermetic alchemy and the inner transformation. Okay, so the 7 principles organized in the 1908 book, the Kybalion, which was published under the pseudo, which is basically the author, 3 initiates, which was Hermes Trismegistus and the 3 initiates. The actual author is widely recognized as William Walker Atkinson, and he lived from 1862 to 1932. A writer, occultist, a key pioneer of the early 20th century New Thought movement. When people speak of Hermetic teachings coming from the ancient Egypt being lost, because it was originally in ancient Egypt, but all the information basically got lost. And then retrieved through meditation and through combined ancient myth and real history and occult practices. For the myth and Egypt roots and lost texts and Hermetic lore, the teaching originated with Hermes Trismegistus in ancient Egypt over centuries through the burning of libraries of Alexandria, politic purge, and the fall of centuries, or the fall of ancient civilizations. Much of the writing, physical knowledge was destroyed or scattered. Occult tradition claims that while the physical books were lost, the core principles could never truly be destroyed because they were universal spiritual laws stored in the universal mind or the cosmic consciousness. So the way they were getting it back through meditation, which is mental transmutation, because the first principle of Hermeticism states the all is mind. So everything, the mind is everything. Everything is the mind, the all. The universal mental. Practitioners believe the physical books are not required to access deep truth. Accessing the universal mind through deep meditation and trance state, mystics believe they could quiet the ego and tune their individual consciousness into higher cosmic plane. By doing so, they could re-download or channel the lost Egyptian wisdom directly from the source. Mental alchemy / transmutation in the Kybalion, using meditation and forcing willpower to after your consciousness and tap into these principles, is called mental transmutation. Instead of turning lead into gold physically, a mystic used meditation to channel their mental state from lower vibrations, for example, fear and ignorance, to a higher one, wisdom, alignment with the universe. So alchemy, when you become supreme alchemist is when you could turn lead into gold. And that is actually a physical thing. But really the cheat code of that is actually turning the lead in your body into gold in your body. That's true. That's the true Philosopher's Stone. But they say when you figure out how to do it physically with the lead and the gold, you actually ascend and go to higher dimensions, basically. Okay, the historic reality. Historians view the narrative in a slightly different lens. The texts were lost during the Mid-Ages. Western Europe lost access to original Greek and Egyptian Hermetic manuscripts, which was called the Corpus Hermeticum. The texts were recovered in the 15th century, the Renaissance. Scholars rediscovered their lost manuscript in Byzantine archives and translated them back into Western language. In the 1900s, synthesis, when William Walker Atkins wrote the Kybalion in 1908, he framed his ideas in ancient Egypt's secrets retrieved from shadows to explain why his exact 7 principles did not appear word for word in old Hysterian scrolls. Western occultism often explained the secret societies that secret societies preserve the refined and lost wisdom over generations through inner meditation vision. Okay. Hermes Trismegistus is a legendary ancient figure revered as the mythical father of alchemy, astrology, magic, and Hermetic philosophy. He's not a real historical person, but rather a syncretic hybrid, a blend of two ancient gods merged together during the Hellenistic period. The truth, and the other god was Thoth. So Thoth and Hermes is the ones that basically they merged together to make Hermes Trismegistus. But there's other gods as well from different cultures they merged in that. So it's actually multiple gods, but that's what I'm understanding. Like, from different cultures, they use different words, so they would call their gods different, but they were actually talking about the same God. And then they were fighting over it, like, my God's better than yours, but they're actually talking about the same God. Okay. So Thoth, the ancient Egyptian god of wisdom, writing, magic, and the moon. And then Hermes, the ancient Greek messenger of god of travel, communication, boundaries, and trade. So what does this mean? So what does Trismegistus mean? In ancient Greek, Trismegistus means thrice greatest. Hermes, the thrice greatest. Hermes Trismegistus. There are two common explanations for this title. The 3 spheres of wisdom. He was said to process knowledge of the 3 masters disciplines of the universe: alchemy, astrology, and theurgy. Theurgy is divine magic and or spiritual work. The 3 great rows, resident scholars interpret the titles as referring to him being the greatest priest, philosopher, and king. His role in history and esotericism. The work ancient author published mysterious, mystic, philosophical, and magical texts under his name. The most famous collection of these writings is known as the Corpus Hermeticum. And Thoth, that's what Hermes wrote. And then what Thoth wrote was the Emerald Tablets. He is credited with writing a legendary Emerald Tablets, a brief ancient text that coined the famous axiom, as above, so below. Residents and beyond, during the Middle Age of residents thinking believed Hermes Trismegistus was a real living contemporary of Moses. So they also think he was Moses. He held the ultimate secrets of the cosmos, making him central icon for the Western esotericism. All right, so now we're actually going to get to the 7 principles. This is basically 7 principles are the foundation of all the universe. You could break it always down to 7 principles, anything. It doesn't even matter. It always breaks down to 7 principles. So the first one is mentalism, the all. The universe is mental. Explanation for this is reality is mental. The reality is fundamentally mental. The universe operates in like a vast living thought meaning all physical matter originates from the universe consciousness. An example.
Sort of like the Matrix.
Yeah. Example would be archiving a goal starts as a mental concept of beliefs taking tangible from in physical reality. So I was going to see, does anyone have like an examples of the first that they what is mentalism to them?
I know in Western philosophy we talk about the idea of dualism or monism. Is everything of one essential nature or two? And those who look at everything being ultimately physical were referred to as materialists, and they are called physicalists. And the other side being mentalists or idealists. And at least some of the modern theories are talking about your subatomic particles maybe not have a local reality, they may not have a location exactly, they may be fields of interaction. So it's kind of like a field of relationships interacting with another field of relationships, maybe what builds up everything. And while it's not exactly the same thing as saying it's idealism and consciousness, a lot of people are also talking about consciousness being perhaps an emergent property of the universe. At which point we're starting to get pretty close to relationships and ideals being the underlying thing that reality is made of. And that's, I'm wondering if there's many people trying to patch that together in esoteric beliefs and in physics.
The more we go on, it actually I feel like it speaks about something similar that they actually kind of like link together. It's not necessarily linking, but it's like kind of one of the principles, like basically duality. You know what I'm saying? So Maru Ill, you got an example for mentalism?
I mean, I feel as if whenever you think about something, pretty much already pictured it. We have a meeting coming up where we're going to decide where we're going to be having this concert at. Mentally, we've already got to have that goal in mind. That's one example.
Good examples. Anyone else have an example?
Well, we only perceive what we think of as a physical universe through our minds. And so it's all hidden, let's say. Whatever the physical universe is always mediated by our senses and our thoughts around it.
What's your example? You got an example? All right. Anyone else got an example?
I'm not sure if you call this the same thing, but at least in this kind of philosophy that appeals to me, that idea of letting to gold as working on oneself, taking the raw materials of oneself, and producing something better through personal development.
Yeah. So kind of like how I look at mentalism, it's like it's the awe. So basically everything is actually happening in your mind. Like there's nothing like, yeah, we touch this and we feel this over here, but actually what that is like energy going up your arm and you're feeling it in your mind. So when you see it across the room, you're not actually seeing it across the room. It's something that's hitting your eye, that's hitting your reticular activating system, which is going into your mind. You're seeing all this in your mind. So everything is happening in your mind. So when you start thinking about that, my perspective is you can actually start changing the universe just with your thoughts. Because if you know everything's in your mind, you gotta just change your thoughts or the way you look at life. If you look at life differently, your life actually changes. All right, the second one is correspondence, which is as above, so below, as below, so above. So it's a pattern repeats across all planes of existence. Micro and macro reflects each other. So like an example of this would be the structure of an atom, electrons orbiting the nucleus, mirrors the structure of the solar system, planets orbiting the stars. So how the solar system works, how something works in the solar system, it works everywhere the same way. Like once you learn like, oh, this is how it works here, it's going to work across the whole universe the same way. So this is how the solar system works, this is how the atoms work, and vice versa. So, anyone have examples of that?
There's a relatively new thing in mathematics, probably from the 80s. It's called fractals. And fractals are repeating patterns that have the same sort of pattern no matter the scale. And an example of that is the coastline of a nation is a fractal thing. And if you want to figure out how long the coastline is, you can't. Because simply by making shorter measurements, you get a longer coastline. And that's because of this fractal replication and miniaturization.
Yeah, that's a really good example, actually. Wow.
You also get a fractal nature with a lot of patterns in math, like the way the pressure values within a pipe, the water moving through the pipe, are mirrored in the traffic densities on highways.
Oh yeah, highways are just hoses.
Yeah, which is an interesting thought to think, because that means that plants us as something like a water molecule.
This is an aside. I was driving up I-79 today to come up here, and a pickup truck passed me, and its license plate was I-79SUKS, which I thought was completely apropos. Yeah. Oh, another thing. I just saw some really close-up pictures of the sun that they've finally been able to take.
Wow.
And the eddy currents in the gases are fractals, which is kind of amazing.
Wow.
Just the light radiating down to us has some pattern of fractal in there.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty intriguing. Mauro L., you got an example for this?
Everything is corresponding above, corresponds below. They're connected. One controls the other.
So, like, as below, so above, how they kind of, an example they use is that as above, so below. So it's like as your mind is, then that is how your body becomes. So the mental becomes the physical. So as above, so if you're thinking you're healthy, your body's going to be healthy. Example, or if you're thinking the opposite, or if you're thinking whatever, if you think you can do this in your mind, your body could do this. For example, I use example basketball players, oh, I can't play basketball. And the person's never good. And the person, and they'd be like, what do you do? He's like, I'm a basketball player. So when he was little, so that he'd been saying that since he was little, and he truly believes that in his mind, he actually becomes a professional basketball player. All right.
There's another principle in most of science in that what's happening today is the same as happened before, and the same that's going to happen after. The mechanisms aren't going to change depending on the wheels. There's an exception in the Big Bang theory, where in the beginning there are no wheels, basically. And then eventually it gets organized, although they're not quite sure how. But in geology, erosion works now, erosion worked 10 million years ago. Same thing. Otherwise, you're hopeless in trying to figure out what's going on.
Specifically, they call it the Aristotelian worldview. Great Aristotle argued that the fundamental laws of the universe don't change.
So, kind of the Big Bang Theory, I guess, when the creation was created, first there was darkness, but not darkness like we know, when it gets night out here, the void darkness, complete nothing. And then after that, so they say is that there was the void, and then there was the first element was water, and then there was the feminine aspect, which is basically disorder, well, which is basically like the nature. It's growing all wild. So everything was all wild. Then the masculine aspect came in, which was order, and like kind of started putting things. And then that's how the universe was created. Okay.
You know what came before the Big Bang?
What?
Software engineers.
Wow, that might be true. Yeah.
And who's better at making chaos than software?
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I meant. That's what I meant by when I said disorder before. Feminine aspects, chaos, the nature going chaotically. Yeah. So the next one, the next principle, the third principle is vibration. Okay. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. An explanation of this is like everything in exists is in constant motion at varying frequencies. The difference between physical matter, energy, and mind is simply their rate of vibration. So an example of this would be like H2O. It could be on different frequencies. And if you put H2O on different frequencies, one will be ice, one will be water, and one will be steam. So they're all the same substance at different vibrational frequencies. So anyone got an example of vibrations?
Clearly temperature. Temperature
Yeah.
is determined in a gas by the rate of the vibration.
Yeah.
And in solids as well.
Yeah.
I don't know about in plasma. Plasma is another form of
Wow.
matter.
Yeah, it's the fourth state of matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good example. I didn't even thought about that because it's like, what H2O plasma? What is?
This is plasma ratio. That's interesting. The plasma I'm most familiar with is called arc flash.
Mm-hmm.
And arc flash is when you get an arc through the air caused by a high current, and that when the arc is sustained by copper, the temperature of the arc is 30,000 degrees Celsius, which is much hotter than the surface of the sun.
That's not naturally occurs on Earth.
Yes. It can kill you. Can you see lightning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lightning's plasma. The sun is a plasma ball. And but there's like plasma in everything, really. I think it's just different like calibers of the plasma, because there's plasma in plants. There's some plasma pretty much in anything. It's just, I guess, how much of it in that certain thing, which is pretty intriguing and interesting.
So this table right here.
Okay, so actually we lost connection on here. So Maruel, what were you saying? We're back on the fourth principle of vibration. What was the explanation you just said? Because we lost, I had to reconnect.
Everything is in motion. It seems like it's a solid state when you look at it, but there's so many atoms moving through it. It's moving so fast that it seems that it's standing still. Just like this table, this chair, anything that seems solid and flat, it's actually vibrating.
Yeah, like a rock. It's like the rock's not moving, but the atoms are definitely moving in there, so it's still vibrating.
And that's what makes the shape of the rock as well.
Correct. Yeah, that's what's up.
You can get to very low vibration states.
Yes.
Like
To disappear.
very cool, very highly cooled helium. Helium has bizarre properties at very low temperatures. Helium, if you put it in a vessel, will climb up the walls of the vessel and go out, defying gravity. It's just
Wow.
And I don't know why that is, but It's when you get down to really, really low temperatures and really, really reduced vibration.
Wow. So,
It's interesting to think that, like, we have a concept of stillness, you know, that we think of. And
wow.
the stillness that we perceive is emotion, in motion. So our frame of reference for stillness is kind of, I don't want to say it's wrong exactly, but it's not like in the greater cosmic universal sense correct. You know, and when we get to something that actually has a kind of, is closer to stillness, like you know, we start to see things we don't think of as still, I don't think of as the default state, which just sort of shows that our sense of what the default state is just based on our context, and not like a greater universal truth.
It's also based on what we need to survive.
Yeah.
And so if you have a saber-toothed tiger that's moving 1/4 of an inch an hour, it's not a threat.
Yeah.
So you don't pay attention to it.
Anyone else got any examples of vibration? Okay, so the fourth principle is polarity. Everything is dual, like duality. Everything has poles. An explanation will be opposites are identical in nature, differing only in degree. Extremes can meet to be reconciled along the same continuum. So an example would be like hot and cold are not separate phenomena, but varying degrees of the single continuum called temperature. So hot, like you were saying earlier, hot and cold, it's still temperature, but it's the opposite poles, and that's duality. Anyone have examples of polarity?
Well, magnets traditionally have a north and south pole.
Yeah. Wow.
I recently found what they call monopole magnets. I'm not quite sure what that is. There are only one of the two poles. There is no other pole associated with it.
Wow. I never heard of that. That's pretty cool.
Attracted to other monopoles with an opposite charge, or
I feel that everything has to have a duality, but you gotta have a masculine, you have to have a feminine.
And there's a famous Dutch poem. It's everything is either concave or convex, so whether it be green is something in sex.
Wow.
Of course, there are flat planes, which kind of blows them away, but it's still fun.
Yeah. So, anyone got examples of polarity?
Oh, obviously electricity,
Yeah.
positive and negative.
Yeah.
Ones and zeros.
Yeah.
binaries.
Yeah. So like people. So what would be the polarity of people? Does anyone know?
Seems like we have a lot of
And a positive side and a negative side.
Yeah. And what would
Dark and the
I'm not even going to say that. Huh? What is it?
dark
Uh,
and the yang.
energizing, entertaining,
So like people, the polarity of people will be like feminine and masculine, female, male. So they're one's a female, one's a male, but they're both people. So that's the duality of people, or polarity of people.
But that's on a continuum. And there are all sorts of variations between the quote masculine and quote feminine.
Yeah. Good.
You have the head-set testosterone
Yeah.
soldiers,
Yeah.
and you have Mother Teresa,
Yeah.
and then you have people between.
Yes. Correct.
It's more like the metaphor of temperature better for that. All those degrees between.
Yeah.
Temperature is simple.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. So the fifth principle is rhythm. Everything flows in and out. The pendulum swings, manifests in everything. So an example of this is life operates in natural tides, cycles, and swings. What rises must fall, but understanding this allows one to neutralize negative swings. So an example of this would be like the economic markets would absolutely alternate between periods of boom and recession. Anyone got a example of rhythm?
I have sort of a counterexample. It's called entropy.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that the universe tends toward disorder rather than orderliness.
Mm-hmm.
And so no matter what you do, you increase entropy.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're taking a bunch of stuff and putting it in alphabetical order, the energy used to do that increases the chaos in the total universe.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be finding rhythms that the seasons come up.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta keep cycling through that picture. At least on Earth. I think that most, even if you look at other planets, they probably have seasons, but they may not have the same patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Or even the same, like, they may not even be four set.
Mm-hmm.
They have different numbers of sets, different
Mm-hmm.
situations, different
Mm-hmm.
cosmology of different
Mm-hmm.
planets.
So that's what I would actually, I thought of something like that, like, it's a different planet, so it's like, is there different rules? But it's, universal law, if it works somewhere here, it works throughout the universe. Now, if you're going to different dimensions or different multiverses, I don't know if can they have a different set of rules? That was always what I pondered on. You know what I'm saying?
I think certainly different, like, planetary level patterns change with the different, say if a planet has a different set of moons, it doesn't have moons. There's going to be different patterns in that, or if they're in a single star system or a binary star system, or I've heard the trinary star system is extremely problematic for how complicated the systems get. Similarly, like I'm thinking about what are these patterns mean in different contexts? Like even the idea of say masculine and feminine. We have two sexes predominantly as humans. You know, other species, like you look at certain species of fungi, there are up to 4,400 sexes, and just a dizzying array of rules about what can fertilize what.
Wow.
Just like stuff that, like if you were to imagine these like a being becoming sentient out of that, what culture would happen from that? Right? Yeah, like it just looked like that would just spin to mind. And wondering how many of these things that are they universal throughout the cosmos or universal to human experience? And if they are universal to human experience, could we create situations that reach that pattern of understanding? Like if a human being, let's say we start altering ourselves genetically, and we go really out there with it. If in nature more than two sexes exist, couldn't you then create more than two sexes in an altered human? And in other forms of changes that we could read, that we haven't wrapped our brains around yet.
Mm.
Like, where are the limits to that? And I don't know that there are any necessarily. That's one of those things that just makes me like sit there late at night, like, oh, I need to sleep.
Can we go back to the seasons for a minute?
Yeah.
I want to come up with several scenarios. Scenario number one is a planet that's absolutely 90 degrees vertical, has no tilt. So it always gets the same amount of sunlight at the same place. The star is not variable, so it produces the same energy no matter where it is. So you don't have any seasons because there's no variation. And then,
In every place, but up above you would always have winter. At the equator you would always
Right,
have summer.
right.
So if you go north and south, you have
Yeah, okay.
The seasons.
But the seasons don't vary in a particular location.
That's true.
If you have a planet that has different distances to the sun, I mean, widely varying distances to the sun, then that probably would predominate. You might have the close season, the faraway season, and the midway season.
Kind of like a very oval orbit.
Yeah, very oval orbit with the sun close to one edge of the orbit.
There's a great book series called What If Earth Had Two Moons, where they take different cosmological arrangements of the universe. What if Earth had two moons, is the first example. And then we go through alternate histories of like, what would have happened if Columbus was sailing under this, like scenarios like that. And they give you short stories like that to explore the idea of what would happen if you had a different setup like that.
Like the tides would be too electric.
Yeah. And how would that change sailing, sailing technology, history related to that?
And every 42 years you have incredibly high tide.
I think something that has a rhythm is how people govern themselves. So, there is a time where there are tribal things going on and there's no central government, and then suddenly they realize that's not working, so then they move to a central government. Usually corruption, I think, is probably, or war is what makes the changes, And then we go to a hierarchy where there's one leader for a while, and then somebody comes in who's not so nice, and then suddenly everybody wants more democracy. And there's always this like cycle going on. So I think, and we see that around the world, as every country is sort of living their own variation of where they are at whatever stage they are. Some are more dictator right now, and others are more democracy or
I've always been
tribal.
interested in business reorganizations along the line of what you're talking about, where you could go into a company and say, okay, we got to centralize. We're going to bring everybody in the building. We're going to centralize. And the business gets better. 10 years later, it's starting to slide. So what do? We got to decentralize. We got to decentralize. And what happens? Business gets better.
Absolutely.
Because it's not the direction. It's the organization and inertia. But businesses will stuff to you on the perspective, we're doing this now, and look, it's responding. Yeah, because you're down in the trenches telling people to go do this, instead of sitting up there and doing what you are doing.
Yeah.
And it's not magic, so it happens that exists.
That's a good word for rhythm, inertia, or like momentum, basically, whatever the momentum is. And talking about Democrats, a republic. So, like, I feel, for example, I feel like it's more democracy right now is the rhythm, but right now it's actually changing back to the republic. Is how I kind of perceive the rhythm going. Now, what rhythm that's going to become, we'll see to come. But that's an example of rhythm.
I remember someone saying that around during Obama's presidency, saying that we're shifting towards progressive here. There is historically a swing back any time that happens. And they're talking about how we're going to go towards some more authoritarian thing after this for a time. And now we're kind of seeing that. I'm like, okay, but that does imply we swing back, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
looking at that as
There is always
Yeah. So
that we tend to do this in a cycle back
Yeah.
and forth.
So universal law, it has to swing back and forth. It can't stay constant.
What you were describing as a name, it's called a Hawthorne effect. Hawthorne. It's the name of the Western Electric telephone manufacturing plant. And they brought in a work specialist to try to increase the productivity of a group of women who were mining forest. And first they came in and they turned the lighting at twice as much. Okay? They made more focus. Then they turned the light down to a third of what it used to be. They made more focus. Then they rearranged the tables. They made more focus.
Oh, God bless you.
One of the other things they did. But what they finally figured out that the reason that the productivity was going up was because the workers thought they were being paid attention to and were important.
I find it so strange that, when I was younger, I was like so technical, and I wanted to do everything the technical work, and I kind of got sucked into management of business. And it ended up, I was very happy, because you could make things actually happen. You could solve problems, and they were more complicated. It wasn't like building some device. Building devices is easy. Getting two people to agree. It amazed me. One quick story. I read a great scientist group, and one of the guys came in to me and said, I want to go to a conference in Hawaii. I want to go to a conference in Hawaii. Why? It's the East-West Conference. It's important for me to go. And he was a really bright, good scientist. And I'm like, shit, I'll try to sell this. But this is like, this lights all the alarms go off like crazy when you request going to Honolulu for our conference. So I go over there.
From Switzerland.
Put it all together, get it happening, and I tell him it's going to happen. He goes, I can bring my wife too, right? And I didn't know what to say. I was like, you want us to pay for your wife? And yeah, you want us to pay for your wife. You want me to go back to my boss and ask him to pay for your wife to go to Hawaii? And I couldn't understand because, I was a young fellow, the audacity of someone to do that. I mean, don't get me wrong, 20 years later, it was me asking. At the time, it was like, shocked.
Because you knew it was possible.
Yeah, well, that's another thing. I came back from the World Trade Center once after a big meeting on the top floor, and I was in the limo with the upper managers because I couldn't get a car ride. And the stuff they talked about, it was like they were zapping country. Businesses out of existence. The factory, we got to shut that. Yeah, I think we should shut it down. All right. And then they're going down the highway doing stuff like in 10 seconds of decisions, crushing lives and doing stuff.
But their wives were going with them too.
You're right. It's over.
There was a lot of space on the private jet.
Yeah. I have to balance it.
Bring it back. It sounds like this is hope. Was kind of part of what needs to keep being. You keep investing in something, people keep staying productive. Like we've got a wheel with the momentum as you're talking about, and I keep thinking of like on the side of a steam engine, how there'll be that one arm that connects to the wheel. What's driving the wheel? In that case, it's hope.
Yes. Hope is very important.
And you see, I can only believe that's a driver because when I see how our country tolerates bad behavior, my assumption is, I'll let you behave badly because someday I can. Maybe will be a robber baron next day and robbing everybody. Of course, that never ever happens. You're always on the bottom. But that's how people, I believe, hope themselves into governments like we have.
That's like people who vote for low taxes for millionaires because they think, tomorrow afternoon I could become a millionaire. Of course, that is never going to happen. But it's like people think they're in a casino. And they think they're going to win.
Well, the thing with millionaires is they can just sell a stock that's doing poorly, and then they've got a loss that they can write off against their million, and then they don't pay tax.
Well,
So,
it's even better than that.
I mean,
We do.
It's like
charging millionaires or billionaires anything on taxes is so stupid.
Well,
It's a waste of time. It's just,
We need Sharia law. Sharia law says, we're not going to tax your income, we're going to tax you on your net worth. And so if you have $1 billion and you haven't earned it this year, we don't care. You still get 2%.
Sharia or West Virginia law? What law is this?
Sharia.
I used to think of West Virginia was the state that went to the revenue idea came from, checking to make
well,
sure you don't
the
come
thing is
out.
our Constitution says something about that income tax is possible, that Congress has the right to charge a tax on income, but it doesn't say that Congress has a right to charge a tax on wealth. So it's, you'd have to put an amendment into the Constitution.
Or
Just be on your album.
Bring us back online, Jerry,
Right.
before we want to revolution.
All right. All right, so the sixth principle is cause and effect. Every cause has an effect. Every effect has a cause. So nothing happens by pure chance or luck. Everything obeys universal law. By becoming a conscious cause rather than an unwitting effect, you control your outcomes. An example of this would be consistently eating nutritious food, which is a cause, reliably produces higher daily energy levels. That would be the effect. So does anyone have any examples of cause and effect?
I have a gazillion counterexamples. You can take random events and produce a known result.
Which is the effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, take pennies. You flip 1,000 pennies.
Yeah.
You're almost always going to get a number very close to 500 per head, and very close to 500 per tail.
Yeah.
But each individual thing is random.
Yeah.
Okay? You take a jar with cold water in it, you pour warm water in it. Now, there are going to be a lot of random things happening, and eventually, the jar is going to come to basically an average of those two temperatures, depending on the quantity of fluid. Brownian movement is when little tiny things bump around in a glass of water. And it's possible that they all bump over to one side, and it's possible they would all bump over to the other side, but that never happens. They always end up being almost completely evenly distributed, yes. So that's my thing about randomness produces order.
So could randomness be called a cause of order then? Or is it just, does that be phrased some other way?
That's a good question. I don't know. Now that I blow your thing, have somebody recover it.
Well, my main concern is Elon Musk, he sent up this Tesla car into outer space, right? And randomly, is this thing going to come back once and hit us and, kill humanity? I mean, that's the arrogance of that. It's just breathtaking.
Now, that should burn up if it were to re-enter the atmosphere, but still causes some
Pretty good size. And it's made out of what, titanium?
I don't know.
I think it's titanium.
But pretty irresponsible.
Oh, of course. But he doesn't care.
Well, that's clear.
So is that an example of ignoring the effect?
Well, we've got a cause going out there, but what the effect is, that's the question.
That brings to mind, like, for instance, how we treat our trash situation.
Right.
We know we're creating a cause, and we do have an idea of what kind of effect it is, but we tend to ignore this, and that's unhealthy.
Speaking of cause and effect, it's about 12 and 11.
Yes.
I have to take my children out here soon. And I don't want to know what the effect's going to be if they don't fix that.
All right, I'm Maru L. We organic. Shouts outs. Peace.
That might be a good segue to
So the seventh principle is gender. Gender is everything. Everything has masculine and feminine principles. Generation and creation requires the balance of masculine and feminine. Masculine being active, assertive, directive, and feminine being receptive, intuitive, generative. Energies on all planes. So an example of this would be planting a seed. The seed is masculine action, and nutrient-rich soil, which is feminine environment, and requires the nature and grow a fruit-bearing tree. Anyone have examples of gender? So the example of gender that I have is, so everyone has a masculine side and a feminine side. So kind of like a torus field, like the top of the torus field, that would be going out. So that would be masculine. The bottom of a torus field would be going in. So that would be feminine. So the right side of your body, it gives out energy, and the left side of your body takes in energy. So on the right side of the body is your masculine side, and your left side of the body is your feminine side. And this has nothing to do with sex. For instance, like masculine would be fire and air, and feminine would be land and water. Yeah. So so those are the 7 principles of alchemy, 7 Hermetics principles. There are actually 2 hidden ones, because actually it got to go to 9, because 9 is the number of completion, and you're not even going to find this information anywhere. But the number 8 principle will be cycle, or like new cycles. So the infinite cycle, for instance, the Boreas, the serpent that's actually eating itself. Sometimes it's a circle and it's biting itself. Sometimes it's an infinity symbol and it's eating itself. So an example would be like infinity. So like build and destroy, for example. Like you're simultaneously building and destroying at the same time always. So if we got some land and we want to build a house, we're destroying that land while we're building that house. So build and destroy simultaneously. The 9th principle is new. So off of that cycle, something new comes. Like, for instance, the next generation, the new generation. And that would be, example would be like something being born, or like manifested. So you got to go through all these principles to get to the 9th one, to actually manifest something or born something. So for instance, to recap the principles, mentalism. What is mentalism? That's thought. So what is thought? Knowledge. So information. So then that would be the first step. The next step will be correspondence. What is that? That's knowledge into action, which is wisdom. It's correspondence. So you got to take the information and put it into action. That's the next step. The third step is vibration. What's vibration? It's motion. So it's like understanding. It's like actually you took the knowledge, you put it into action. Now you actually mastered that knowledge. So now you got an understanding of that. Number 4 is polarity, which is polarity is also the collection of energy, which is basically the collection of energy is like how the culture works. So how the culture works is what you have the freedom to do. So however this culture is working, you have the freedom to do, because you can't live by yourself at the end of the day. The next one would be rhythm, which is like projection. So the rhythm is, the inertia is what you're projecting. So like that's what it's that's what you have the power to do. And if you don't have the power to do something, then you refined it till you have the power. But you're pretty close to doing what you want to do already. If talking about going through the manifesting something or borning something, and the next step will be cause and effect. What's cause and effect? That's what you create. So example, I pick up this pen and drop it. The cause was me dropping it. The effect was it making a noise on the table. So you create something, which is also like equality if you look at it from a higher picture. And now we created something. So that energy equally dispersed. So now everyone's going to some way, even if you can't see it, receive that energy equally. So then the next step is gender. So gender, it's something's being born. So it's got to be a gender. So now there's energy, that equality that's going to someone. Just because it's going to everyone equally, it still could be negative or positive how they receive the energy. Huh? It's about perspective and perception.
Their perception.
Yeah. So, but that's when you basically have the God power, is to create. Now you have the actually God power, the divine power. And then going to the hidden ones, so now you have the God power to create something. Now it creates the cycle of whatever power you have. And that's the infinity cycle, which is laborious, which is that build and destroy, which is that transmutation. That's when you're transmuting something to something else. So, for example, what can we transmute? Well, for instance, I mean, because it's my thing, I'm an alchemist, and I transmute precious metals and essential metals into biocompatible metal physics plasma liquid, which is this. So I take precious metals or gold metals, and the highest form of healing in the physical realm is first precious metals, and then after that is essential metals, then after that is herbs. And you're only supposed to eat fruit. The human body is only designed to eat fruit. And actually, we're only supposed to, if talking about eating fruit, we're only supposed to drink H3O2, which the only way to even get H3O2 is through the fruit, because then you're drinking H2O or plasma liquid, metal plasma liquid. And basically the next thing would be, so that's transmutation. It's like taking something and transmuting it into something else, using the elements and the minerals. And then after the cycle or the infinity cycle, now something new is born, it's manifested. And this is the foundation to everything. And especially if you're talking about manifestation, you might not know it, but you're going through all these steps when you're manifesting something. And the first step is always the mind. Everything is a mind. Everything created, everything we point to, everything looked through was through a mind first. Someone thought about a fan in the mind first, so I'm going to create a fan. Someone thought about a light. Everything came through the mind first before it was manifested. And so now we have 2 extra principles that are hidden, esoteric, over here at Universe Light Power with Supreme Infinite Light. We just had Amaro L in the building, and from We Organic, which is High Vibe Tribe, hosting at the Unitarian Universalist in Morgantown, West Virginia. And we got this event coming up shortly, guys. So come and have fun with us at the next full moon under the bonfire. Authentic love to the all.